I'm back with New York Congressman Claudia Tenney from the 22nd Congressional District. Claudia, well, let's pivot a little bit to foreign policy. You're on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. There are Americans still left behind in Afghanistan. I realize the issue has been sort of sidelined in the national media. Is there any way to put a kind of pressure on the Biden administration, which appears to be relatively indifferent to their fate? Do you think that they will, and also I want to ask you, do you think that the American people will remember those images of people falling out of planes, the kind of disgrace that Biden has left us with in Afghanistan?
Yes, they have Joe Biden was arrogantly made this decision. We attended the meetings. There were open source open media sources that said that, the generals and many that were experts on the ground said, don't do this way. Even Joe Biden, a video has been released recently that showed that he said it would be a disaster if we pulled out of Afghanistan in exactly the way that he did it. And we're still hearing from American citizens. Some are green card holders and some are SIVs still interested in getting out. So I think it's a huge problem because the media wants this story to go away and they're effectively letting it go away. Look, people forgot about 9/11, a horrible situation for many years. And all these years went by and we kind of forgot. And here we are again. I mean, I think one thing that Joe Biden wanted to do, which is why they're so tone deaf on the other side, is, his mission was to pull out of Afghanistan for symbolic reasons on September 11th initially. That's when they moved it back to August 31st. So I just think they have just no clue about the insult and the disgrace that was while we were trying to remember the tragedy of 9/11 and they were celebrating that we're getting everybody out. Well, it's all about political posturing. I hope people remember. We're still working on it, but the administration just doesn't seem to want to deal with Afghanistan at all. They just want that ship to sail.
What about China? With China, you're dealing with, it's one thing to lose in Afghanistan. It's a country that is of, I suppose, ambiguous strategic significance. It's a small country. But on the other hand, there are very formidable adversaries that America has around the world. I'm thinking, for example, of Iran. I'm thinking of China, perhaps the most formidable. And when they see what happened in Afghanistan, it can only be emboldening to them. And we've seen the Chinese take some aggressive steps, not just toward Taiwan, but also in terms of building up their hypersonic technologies. Do you think China is going to feel that under Biden, who appears to be, tottering, not just himself personally, but the administration, this is a window of opportunity for the Chinese to test the resolve of the United States?
Well, certainly they've been doing that. Obviously, you cited the hypersonic missile that we didn't know about until we saw a press release. That's kind of embarrassing for the United States. And the Taiwanese have been really reaching out to us. And the Democrats and Biden don't seem to want to defend and protect how important it is to keep the democracy going in Taiwan and just the strategic importance. If China could go in probably about an hour and take over Taiwan without the United States support. And I don't know why they haven't yet at this point with Joe Biden in office, but I'm certain they're always strategic. They have a 100-year plan. They have the Belt and Road Initiative. They're leveraging their power, their economic power, and their military might, which they're building up substantially around the world with smaller countries and vulnerable countries. And we're not doing that. We need to counter China. We also need to watch them. I have a China Watcher bill that came out of Foreign Affairs that would put a special division in the State Department to watch China for their economic, their political, and their military aggression that we see around the world, because we need to start taking them seriously. Joe Biden describes them as a competitor. They're not a competitor. They want to be the world's dominant leader, and they want to take over us. And they have an authoritarian style government, and they're very effective at it.
Claudia, before we close, let me ask you about election integrity, because there have been election integrity bills that have in some cases passed in states around the country. Now, the left's position on this is that, why are you doing this? We all know the last election was completely secure. There's been no convincing evidence of systematic fraud. And so these election integrity bills are seen as motivated merely by some kind of a vindictive desire to suppress voters. Say, in brief, if you will, what do you think is the case for pushing forward with these election integrity bills?
Well, first of all, the most profound expression of our self-governance is our ability to vote in a free, fair, secure, and private election. And so that's why I formed the Election Integrity Caucus after I spent 100 days of counting through chaos in a pandemic-style election where Governor Cuomo created this online database without verification that undermined integrity, and we couldn't determine if one person had one vote. And so the Democrats want to ban voter ID. Recently the FEC has allowed foreign entities now to come in and potentially donate in our elections. That will be a complete disaster if that happens. So we have to continue to fight this. A lot of it is technically not legal. It is legalized fraud. It's intentional chaos. It's overwhelming the bureaucracy to the points where the bureaucracy can't function. Election integrity is undermined, and it's very hard to kind of find out what happened in the end. And then that's kind of where we are after the election of 2020. Now, what do? We want to make sure going forward, we don't allow a lot of these initiatives to continue to undermine that. Voter ID, vote trafficking, which is what I call vote harvesting, which is what it really is. Those, things need to be in place in order to protect and secure the elections. And people care about it. It's the number one issue that gets addressed to me. Could be because they all watch my election play out for months, 3 months, but it's also because people are worried about the system. But, encourage everyone to vote, but pay attention, know what the rules are, get your friends out to vote, watch what's happening with our local governments, and let's make sure the federal government doesn't take over this aspect of our lives as well. Because once that happens and HR 1 or HR 4, Nancy's signature legislation gets passed, we're done. I mean, we'll never see a free election or a fair election again.
Wow. Claudia, Tenney, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you. That was a great honor to be with you.